can you walk through what some of the ramifications of all of this were for you, or what you saw when you were still with the fire service?
I mean, the proximity to where we work is a big thing, and you talk to the guys like, couple of generations before me. They one of the things that made them sad was you used to have family picnics and do all these things in the community because the firefighters lived in the city. They did all these things together, and then that was it. As just like you said, as downtown areas or urban areas get more and more and more expensive, and more often than not, firefighter salaries barely move. Then we literally have to move further and further away. And I, just like so many others, I lived an hour and 15 away from most of my fire stations. There's a couple of times where I happened to live a little bit closer, but that was pretty much it, because like Orlando, for example, really expensive. And so, yeah, it does have a detriment to your ability to get to that place. I mean, when I say that, for example, in Florida, our big thing is hurricanes. Mm-hmm. Like, I have been driving towards a hurricane when the rest of Florida is driving away, and it's just me and then some occasional, power workers heading down. And so, the artery roads are usually open unless there's something absolutely catastrophic. So we more often than not can get to there, barring a massive earthquake or something that completely breaks infrastructure. Where I think it's more important is when you think about the cuts that we've had in law enforcement and fire, there's not really a picture painted on how detrimental that is to our response. So a much more powerful perspective, I think, is you live where you live, and the neighboring fire station would have been the closest, but they're understaffed, so they had to brown it out. So now that fire station doesn't have anyone, or they had to send that rig to go cover like a mid spot between two. So now your little one starts choking, and the crew that would have been, 4 minutes from your house are now 12, 14 minutes from your house. And what really irks me is that the cities and counties don't go, hey, well, we're giving you a shittier service, but we're going to give you some of your tax money back. You know what I mean? So no one's telling them that when all this happens, their service is getting worse and worse and worse. And where I live now, there was a time, and they've changed it finally, but Marion County here were doing what they call IFTs, interfacility transports. So hospitals were paying them to take a patient from hospital A to hospital B. But that ambulance was the one that was close to your child that would get ready for when they're choking. Now they're 50 miles away in Gainesville, dropping off a patient. So this is where, I think the storytelling, and the fire service has done an absolutely awful job of really telling the public what we do. We just have. But understanding the true human life safety ramifications of these cuts and these politicians' decisions, going back to, someone's worst day, what do you expect on your worst day? Who do you expect to show up?
Right. Is
that going to go hand in hand with you be behind cuts and not supporting fire stations or, law enforcement communities? They're not, they don't go hand in hand. If you're willing to let people take stuff away from the first responder profession, that's literally taking away from your family's safety as well. So I think that's, rather than the proximity of where we live, which is an important conversation, it's more on your doorstep. Who should be coming versus who is actually going to be coming and where from.
Yeah, we have an interesting relationship. Our city has an interesting relationship with the ambulance company here, in that it's a third-party contractor. It's not through the city, and so effectively, these medics are driving around. Right, they're not located at a station, so so when the dispatch gets the call, they send fire. And you just mentioned what some of those issues can be. So they show up, right? Now they've called. And so maybe they're late, right, and they're well beyond their the reasonable response time or the required response time. This just keeps stacking up. And then they call an ambulance. Well, the ambulance is now behind what the response time should be, because fire was behind the response time that it's been. Keep in mind that the city or the county, the city pays the ambulance company. Well, now the ambulance shows up and they're late, and they get fined, or the city gets fined for being late on this. So they're double dipping. They're not only are they paying the ambulance company to be late, right? They're paying them because they were late. at the same time they're paying these fines. So, and the taxpayer, this is at the cost of the taxpayer, rather than putting the medics in the firehouses and fully staffing the firehouses in order for them to be able to respond to the calls in which that are out there with a staff that has the ability to take care of business when they get there. It's mind-blowing, to the tune of millions and millions of dollars a year, as pockets are getting lined, and we continue, as you mentioned, to get worse service. So that's kind of how it impacts the citizen or the victims in these cases.